Today we're going to get started building our revolving tool station. And that all starts with building the base cabinet. I'm going to be using 3/4 inch MDF, and mainly because that's what the original was built out of. But there are a lot of good things about MDF. It's a really stable sheet good, it's relatively inexpensive, and you're not contending with the grain pattern of plywood, so you can really use this product efficiently. The one bad thing about it is it's really heavy and unwieldy if you want to throw it up on the table saw. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and break it down with a circular saw and a guide, and I'm going to go ahead and get that set up. Let's get cutting. What you see here is my preferred setup for breaking down MDF. I like to just go ahead and set a thick sheet of foam insulation down on the floor so I have some thickness that I can cut through the MDF with a circular saw and not cut into the floor. As you can see, I've removed a section of it, so I still have enough support underneath the sheet of MDF, but I also have room on the ends for clamping my, my guide on the ends. So I'm gonna get rid of this. All right, now you see I've got most of my parts laid out for the base. I like to gang parts together, like the sides here that are both they're 22 inches tall, so I can gang those together and get most of my width of my 48-inch sheet here. So I've got those similar pieces ganged together. I've got these similar, the back pieces ganged together, and then I could get the top out of this one as well. The bottom I'm going to get out of another sheet. Another thing to consider as you're laying out parts is you want to leave a little bit of a gap in between the parts for your saw kerf. Otherwise, as you're cutting just on the lines, your parts are going to end up a little bit small. So as you see, I've got it laid out. I've got my saw guide. This is just a piece of 1/2 inch plywood as a straight edge, and then it's got a 1/4 inch hardboard base. And when I made this hardboard base was oversized, and then I just ran my circular saw along that straight edge to cut away the extra. Now this hardboard I can use that to line up perfectly on my cuts, and I know that's where the saw blade's gonna cut at. Another thing to note is you always want to have the wide side of your circular saw base towards the side that you're keeping. So I can go ahead and get this lined up on my lines. All right. Now that I have that clamped in place, I want to make sure that the clamps aren't going to interfere with the motor and battery on the circular saw. That looks fine. The other thing I want to point out is as you're cutting, you do have this guide, but you do want to take care to make a smooth, even cut so you're not tilting the blade and introducing a bevel or wandering away from that guide. I have the MDF all broken down. I have my case pieces cut to size. I'm almost ready for assembly because most of this case is put together with screws and butt joints, but there is a little bit of joinery. I do have to cut a dado in the sides and back pieces that'll house the bottom of the case. And that's just to give it a little bit of strength so the bottom's not bearing on the screws alone. So I have my dado blade set up, and whether you're setting up the dado blade to make this in one pass, or you're going to go a little bit thinner and move the fence over and make a second pass, the fit we're looking for is to have the MDF fit in there and still be able to slide. If it's too tight and you're trying to jam that together, you're really going to have a hard time with assembly, especially when you add glue and things start to swell. So with the dado blade set up, I'm ready to put all those dados in all my pieces. There's just a couple steps left before assembly. First, I had to notch out the bottom here, and I did that with the circular saw using the guide and then just stopping short as I got to this corner. And then using a handsaw, I came back and removed the rest of the waste and I could get that knocked out. Then on the sides and back, I pre-drilled and countersunk for screw holes. Now I'm ready to get assembling here. This is kind of a large and unwieldy project, so we're just gonna give it a go and see how we do here. I'm gonna start by putting a little glue in the dados. And I'm starting with the sides because I have this front edge will be flush with my notch here. I'm going to come back in here with my other side. Add a little glue. All right. I'm going to go ahead and tack these in with some screws. And I do want to warn you to pre-drill into the edges of MDF. You just don't want that splitting when you go to drive the screws. Okay, I'll add a little glue on the end down here. All right, now I got the base all assembled. I'm gonna go ahead and let the glue set up on this and get started on the rails. As you can see, I have the majority of the base already assembled, and I have it flipped over because before I want to add the top, I'm going to add a couple of rails here underneath the bottom and underneath the top for support, and the bottom rails are also going to act as a toe kick. I could screw these in from the top, but I find it a lot easier just go ahead and use pocket hole screws, and so I can locate it when the cabinet's upside down and screw it in that way. So I'm going to start by screwing in my long rail. Then I can move the short rail up here to its final location. All right, with the rails in place, the last thing I want to do on the bottom of this cabinet is add some shop-built levelers, so I'm going to get started on that. So this leveling system starts out by drilling large access holes in the bottom of the base, which I did with a spade bit. Now I need these access holes because the leveling system consists of a mounting block, which will get glued and screwed into each corner, and then those blocks have a threaded insert in each one. I have a long bolt that goes through, and it will go through the access hole, so I can, from the top, when I need to adjust these levelers, I can access it and move the leveler up and down as the base cabinet is on the floor. So another thing I want to point out is with these long bolts, you want to purchase the type that are threaded the entire length of the bolt, not just the type that are threaded on the end. So with that bolt in place, I can go ahead and glue and screw these in place. I'm ready to come back and install the leveling blocks. Come in first with the lock nut, thread that on, and then you'll come in with a fender washer, and then you can put your block on, and then with your counterbore hole here, another washer, and then you'll tighten that last lock nut down so it's seated inside the leveling block. It's not protruding at all, but you still want this connection to be loose enough where that bolt can spin freely as you're adjusting up and down. But as you can see, this one is installed. I can come in here, show you how it works. You just access the head of your bolt inside the cabinet, and you can crank that up and down. And the leveling system here actually serves two purposes. As you get into a corner of a room, a lot of times the floor can go up and down. So having a nice level cabinet is going to help have a stable base as you're working with your tools. But the other thing is, if you're using MDF, it can wick up moisture even from a dry concrete. So I like to use hardwood for the levelers and keep that MDF up off the concrete just enough so I know it's not going to wick any moisture and swell up at all. So I'm going to get these last leveling blocks installed, and I'll be just about done with this base cabinet. All right, we got the top on, we've got it all leveled. I think we're done with this base cabinet, so next time we're in the shop, we can get started on the fun things, the storage carousel and the tool carousel.
Woodsmithplans.com. Hundreds of professional, high-quality woodworking plans right at your fingertips. Every single plan is presented as an easy-to-download digital package that includes pages of step-by-step instructions, full-color photos, illustrations, and exploded views, retail sources for hardware and supplies, plus a cutting diagram and materials list. Many plans offer handy video overviews and guides. Plus, we're proud to offer our plans in both standard and metric. Everything is here, from gorgeous heirloom furniture projects to handy shop projects and upgrades, clever, cost-effective storage solutions, as well as weekend projects and accessories that are great for gifts. All fully searchable and categorized for easy browsing. Woodsmithplans.com, everything you need for building fine woodworking projects.